Hello, my name is Mark Monlux, and this is a brand new episode of Epic Sketch Time. And today with me, I have Ian and Bill, and we're test trying out Zoom. Gentlemen, if you could give yourselves introductions.
Hi, I'm Bill Morse. I'm an illustrator in Seattle, Washington, and I also do a webcomic called Rhapsodies, which you can find on wpmorse.rhapsodies.com.
Hey everyone, my name is Ian Castruita. You can check out my stuff at unfedartist.com. I'm working out of Arizona. I'm an illustrator, graphic designer, and cartoonist.
One of the things that we are doing is we've all agreed to download the app called Logitech Capture so that we can do what Ian's doing right now, which is sharing our screens all at the same time. And it seems like a good solution for what we have in mind. Now, Bill is actually sharing a screen, but it's probably not going to be captured on this video because I believe the video is only going to capture the top three icons at the top and the one that Ian's currently sharing and sharing. But
yeah, I mean, this is just a big test run, right? So you'll be able to look at the recorded video afterwards and
find out what's actually happening, because I have on my second screen, I have Bill's drawing, and it could well be that it's Bill's drawing that's being recorded and not the rest of us. So it'll be interesting. I don't even know
where
where
screen I just see what Bill is sharing. So like I said, I think when you share something, I think it dominates the presentation, and you may be able to see the thumbnails, but otherwise, if you want it to flip back and forth while people are talking, you have to make it so nobody is sharing. At least that's what I think is happening.
Well, what I do have the setting for is there is a setting where you can have everyone broadcasting at the same time. It took me a while to locate that, but they also advise that you have two monitors when you do that. And so I'm thinking that there's probably, or they were suggesting to use some third-party software or second-party software. And I think your second-party software is the best solution for what we're trying to get accomplished. Because that way it would be the voice that would be activating and moving from person to person.
Yeah.
And I think that would work better in the long run. But I'm just glad that the three of us here are working. So, Bill, you're still working on the, is this the thing you started at the drawing session? What's it called again?
The working title is Alice's Testimony, where I was updating it, kind of updating the courtroom scene from Alice in Wonderland into a congressional hearing. And I mostly considered it done, but then I was going into full nitpick mode and decided I really didn't like these background figures in the third panel, so I figured I'd fix it. And once I finish that, I'll go back to the Danse Macabre piece I've been working on.
So I did a little bit of research, and I found out that it can be pronounced either macabre or macabre.
Mm-hmm. And if you're Neil Gaiman, it can also be macabre, though he only did that in one story.
I think I was mispronouncing Neil Gaiman's name, like his last name. I think I was like Gaiman is what I originally started with, and then I actually heard him on an audiobook call himself Gaiman, and I was like, oh. Speaking of mispronunciation.
Let's see. Speaking of mispronunciation, you guys remember my friend John Draper and I have this wonderful game where we do spelling quizzes with each other.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
So let's see what the most recent words are.
How long has this been going on?
Oh, we've been doing this for years. And he just, out of the blue, will call me up. Oh, yeah, here we go. So today's spelling quiz, spell wondrous.
Oh, I know that one. Wonderous.
And Ian, can you steal?
Can I steal? What, Wanderous?
Wondrous.
Wanderous. That like
Full of wonder.
wonder. Okay. So Wonderous.
That's how I did.
That's how Bill spelled it.
Oh, I thought he spelled it like wander, like I'm wandering around. Is it Wanderous?
No. It's there is no E in wondrous. It's Wondrous.
Huh.
Okay. Next one. Synagogue.
Synogouge.
And Ian, can you steal?
Geez, synagogue. I'm probably just gonna repeat Bill again. Syn a. Yeah, I can't think of a different way to spell that. I'll do a pass.
It is Synagogue.
There's a UE at the end. Huh.
Yeah. So
you and your friend are you like keeping score on this and stuff? Like you guys have to play or something, or how's this work?
These are consistent spelling problems and errors, and whenever we get a new one, we add it to the list and we quiz each other on the old ones to see if we've improved at all. For example, he was able, or rather, I have no problem spelling gouache, but he does. So, but for a while there, I was misspelling gouache. I was adding a U into it. I mean, not a U, an O. And gouache is spelled Gauche, and I was misspelling it as go out uchi, you know. So that was my mental way of remembering it was very faulty. Now, one of the reasons, or rather, one of the faults that we're going to be having with Epic Sketch Time is we're actually going to be ending a little early today because I'm using a free version of Zoom. I didn't want to invest in paying the $10 a month subscription fee for Zoom, which allows you to do things longer than 40 minutes, which is what we're going to be limited to today. So next week, I'm going to do another free 40-minute one and see how well that works with our downloaded software. And if that's working really well, then I'll go ahead and subscribe to Zoom, because I can see using it for other uses, because I've been using what's the other teleconference one, Skype, quite a bit, because I have a bit of some $50 software that allows me to do a recording of Skype and doing Skype interviews. And it's really nice software because with two people, it will allow you to make two different soundtracks. So you can break it apart and use just the soundtracks for a podcast, and you can also edit each soundtrack individually, as opposed to, you know, having just one soundtrack and having to go in and trying to edit that. I was doing a thing called Law and Artist with my friend Daniel Abraham for the longest time.
Mm-hmm.
And that reminds me, I need to call up Daniel. He's a bit of a Luddite because he is still yet, I think he is still yet to get an active Facebook page. He's got a Facebook page, but he doesn't know how to use it. And I'm refusing to do anything with him that requires a large social media benefit. Oh, look at this. I got a gift from Zoom. Running out of time, we removed the 40-minute time limit on your group meeting. Okay, I'm going to love that. I guess we can go for the full hour. Woohoo! What was I rambling on about?
About your colleagues being...
Your friend doesn't have a Facebook account, you said?
Oh, no, he does have a Facebook account. He's just not using it. And so I have to show him how to use it. Because if we're both, what good is having a podcast unless he has some sort of social media presence where people can contact and ask him questions? And Facebook is the most widely used one out there. Because, just having an email portal doesn't allow for sharing or for me to see it. He would be forwarding it along. I just want to drag him into the 22nd century. And, sit down and... He's making it much more painful than it needs to be. Oh, I want to show you guys something. I did a new poster.
Is this the Mexican?
Oh, hang on a moment. I got a call coming. I'll talk to you in a sec. Hello, Brent.
So what are you working on, Bill?
This is, I've been wanting to put more comic book pages, add comics into my portfolio. So I've been recycling some of the better comic pages I've done from this indie group that I do on third Tuesdays called Dune. And so, this one, as I just said, is a modern day update of Alice in Wonderland, and the other one that I'm working on is sort of just a child and dance macabre illustration of. So as I said, I'm mostly considering this Alice in Wonderland one done. I think I fixed the biggest problem I had with it, which was the background, where I went back where I started putting a lot of teal in the background, which I think works much better. And at this moment, I was just being picky and decided I didn't like this little bit in the third panel. And at the moment, I think it's working okay.
So, Bill, I'm going to share real quickly. This is my next print for Weird Elephant. It's for a Latin horror movie called Lose, which is about demonic possession. Can you see it?
Yep. Yeah.
I'm really happy with how it turned out. Of course,
this has been a pretty cool set of posters that you've been working on.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's definitely good stuff.
I'll stop sharing. Bill, you remember when we used to take videos of the graphic novel panel?
Yes.
Well, my friend Brent, who is a wonderful illustrator and he's a graphic designer, but he's more of a maker and a fix-it guy, and he does interesting things. And one of the gizmos he has is a device that can take videos and put them into MP4 format.
Nice.
So we should be able to, I gave him a bunch of tapes, and now he's coming and collecting a second camera that I have, and I was using that has a second type of tape because his device for taking those tapes, I have tapes of multiple sizes, so he's coming by to pick up that. And so I might be distracted for a little, guys. I think I'll put my thing on mute and let you guys just share screen for a while.
Okay.
Oh, Bill, you meanwhile let Ian, you've been, I think yours has been,
Okay.
just, there we go. That's what I wanted you to do. I'll talk to you guys in a little bit once I'm done dealing with Brent.
Okay, cool.
So you said you were going to work on stuff for your portfolio. What are you updating your website? Are you putting this on Behance? Like what's your current portfolio right now?
My current portfolio is a WordPress page.
Okay. So yeah, I've seen that one.
Yeah, and so it's just a matter of adding new pieces and adding more variety.
And how are you leveraging that portfolio site? Like, are you pushing people towards it with like I don't know, updates to your Twitter feed saying, "Hey, I added a new piece" or something? Like, what's the strategy for you?
I confess that I'm still working on that strategy, but while a lot of word of mouth, I'm also trying to get better at the social networking.
Yeah.
So very least whatever new piece I'm putting up gets put on my Facebook page and my Instagram account. I mean, yes, I know that for all my talk, my professional skills have a way to go. But since I've been sort of been stuck in my comic strip rut for a whole new thing, and I find that frequently, I don't know if you ever have this problem, but I think it's a variation of the Centipede's Dilemma, where
Dilemma?
Have you heard that one?
No, this is new. Go ahead.
Centipede's Dilemma means that it's this old fable with how somebody asks a centipede how it's able to walk without tripping, and the instant the centipede starts thinking about it, it immediately trips itself up.
Okay.
And so essentially with a lot of comic book composition, I've been reading all the books, been studying it for studying the craft and the art of comic book composition forever. But at the same time, because I've been thinking about it that much, I tend to go into instant brain freeze whenever I'm actually working on trying to put together a page.
Right. Yeah, I've found that I tend to get tunnel vision, and I'll start spending way too much time on it. I mean, just to kind of give you an example, like for me to not put in like a ton more detail on this scene that I did is really difficult, and it's counterintuitive for me. But I always have to kind of pull it back and look at it, and it's like, does it convey what it needs to without all the additional stuff? Because comics, in my opinion, I mean, it's not a rule, I think, but having simplicity and like a quick understanding of an image with a minimal amount of line, I think is the key to comics. And I was actually looking through some Watterson. Calvin and Hobbes, right?
And I'm about to another one. I'd recommend to you. Are you familiar with Dave Gibbons?
I've heard the name. Yeah, I can't think of his stuff right now, but
well,
yeah, but I was looking at some old Calvin and Hobbes, and I was just like, oh, this this SOB. He's so good at it.
Mhm.
And I mean, I've always had it in the back of my mind, like these beautiful watercolor illustrations that he does. But if you look at the line work, it's so beautifully simple
Yep.
and just, and it gets the point across. And I think that's kind of what you want to strive for, not only as a draftsman, but also as a businessman, right? Like you don't want to spend forever on a single panel. I mean, there's no additional money coming out of you spending 4 more hours on a panel.
Especially
So,
when you remember how much you're going to shrink those things.
yeah, that too.
So, but essentially, if it makes you feel any better, the reason I was bringing up Waterston is that your fellow Clip Studio Paint user, there's a series of tutorials connected. Here, I'll get the link here. They do monthly webinars that you can subscribe to for free, and then about 2 months later they'll put them on YouTube. So that's a good one. And so anyway, they've had 2 tutorials. Dave Gibbons has given 2 webinars on it. And one of the things he says is he always has a smaller screen open so he doesn't get himself blinded with too much detail either.
Yeah, I mean, even in my my traditional work, like when I'm painting and stuff, I've had to do 2 things to remind myself that, you know, I'm getting too focused. One is using a mirror, and I'll just turn away from the work and I'll hold the mirror up and I'll look at it, and it completely refreshes my view of the image. I'm like, oh, I need to focus on something else, because you get so used to looking at something and you don't realize that your proportions might be out of line or something. And it's because you don't have a fresh set of eyes. And so a mirror really helps with that. But the second thing is I get up, I walk as far away from the image as I can, and I look at it, and I see how it appears from a distance, which is basically looking at it smaller, right? But yeah, it's something I've learned since school, and I still fall into that rut. It's just so easy to start, you know, zooming in on it and forgetting that, oh, you know, I really don't need to be spending this much time on that. But you know, that being said, I love detail work.
Oh,
I think when it's done, you know, well, it's just so wonderful, and I love just like getting lost in detail. But there's definitely a lot of practice you got to put into it to make it execute well, because you don't want it to just look like a mess of ink on an image. You want it to still have, you know, sufficient contrast and all the basics of, you know, art foundation within it. But yeah, when you can pull off really extraordinary detail, especially just ink, you know, black and white, I definitely admire that. One of my favorite artists that I just came across this year, South Korean, Kim, let me see what it is. Is it Kim? I'm going to mess it up. Let me look it up his Instagram. But he's making me want to go back and just like start over, because I love to be able to draw the way he does. In fact, he doesn't use any reference at all. Like, I'm sure he practices all the time, but when he sits down, he just starts drawing ink to paper, and it's finished, and it's just extraordinary. In fact, some of the Kim Jong-ji, some of the like the process videos, I'll post this up on the
I might know him. At the very least, I think I may have remember hearing of him. It's embarrassing that I may have only heard of him because he has this very similar name to the gentleman from the north.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you look at any, I'm trying to find a good example.
Jace the Kim by any chance? No, wait a minute.
I'm trying to find like a good video. This might work. Let me see. Yeah, it's not great. If you look him up on YouTube, you'll see like a full process of him just going basically after a billboard and rendering it out as he goes along, and it's just finished line work. He doesn't.
Yeah, no, I just got to the page. Yes, I am following him, and yes, it's, if there's one of those guys who, if you don't watch yourself, you'll give yourself an inferiority complex.
Oh, I already have it. But I mean, his detail is amazing. The fact that he doesn't, this is all in his head and he just drafts it out fully rendered as he goes is extraordinary. And yeah, I would just retire as an artist right now if I didn't think that there's at least a direction for me to try to improve. Like I don't know if I could ever draw this way, but I would definitely push myself to get somewhere close. So yeah, but speaking of detail, I mean, you look at his stuff and it's just like, oh, it's very detailed, but it all works, and it's just crazy. Anyway, that's the nugget for sharing today.
Yeah, but it's sort of like this one panel. This is probably a good example of the whole don't overthink it, because it's sort of like, this is me. I mean, I'm not feeling guilty about it. I do definitely think this is a very much an improvement, but having said that, it's probably wasn't as necessary as I'm thinking it was.
Yeah, and one of the things about just being an artist, I mean, anybody who gives themselves that title probably can sympathize with. You're never going to be happy with the artwork. Like sometimes you just have to set it away and let it.
Agree. It's sort of like if I had a dime for every instance where I find myself many a time being objectively incapable of liking my own work.
Yeah. I mean, there's times just in retrospect where I look at it and it's like, this worked. I'm glad that I stopped when I did. And I if I was lucky enough to have somebody, give me their perspective, which I think is invaluable, but, you don't always have the luxury of having a second opinion.
Definitely.
It's, and somebody's like, yeah, this is done. I don't think you need to spend the extra time on it. I mean, it's not a coloring book, right? Like you're not done when all the spaces are filled in anymore. I mean, it's nuance, and it's making decisions with every aspect of it. And even if you are doing color, sometimes you have to decide how much you want to render that out and work on the light and all that, everything else. So. Yeah, Kim Jong-gi though, geez, that just ruined me. I mean, I've seen lots of really good artists, especially these past couple of years, and I'm just constantly reminded of how far I can go if I really push myself. And I think that's the other kind of thing that sucks, is like if you're just allowed to only do artwork, of course you're going to get better, but when you have the rest of your life to kind of worry about, and you spend like a whole day balancing your checkbook or whatever, it's just like, if only I had that time to just focus on even something like silly or something like just practicing anatomy of like the human arm or something. It's like, oh, I could be really good at drawing arms if I had a whole day just to practice it.
Definitely.
But it's hard to find that day. So.
The other thing I find is very good to know is just to remind yourself that that's not the kind of things you're doing anyway. I mean, yeah, Kim here we're talking about is really good. I mean, if I had a dime for every time I thumb through a Pixar art book and I'm sort of sitting in the corner feeling sorry for myself for the rest of the day afterwards.
Yeah.
Some of the people some of the concept is the designers they have in that place are just amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely true. I mean, just to throw the question out to you, I mean, if you had the chance to to just focus on your artwork and you weren't working for yourself anymore, would you take that up, or do you find there is value in just being your own kind of boss and working on your own stuff? Because I mean, those guys, they may enjoy what they're working on, but you know, it's probably not the one thing they would work on if they were given freedom to do whatever they want, right? Like,
I mean, that's a hard one to ask, and yes, I definitely. I mean, generally, as far as contract work, I tend not to be one of the snobs who's, I mean, for example, I just started, generally I'm cool doing, for lack of a better word, other people's art for what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, to give you an example, I started attending this professional game creators group as a way of trying to get my foot into the door of that industry out here. And so last week, 2 weeks ago, I did my first jam for one of these groups where they were essentially they were making the trailer for an imaginary game over the weekend, and so I was doing storyboarding and the cartoon art for what was essentially one of those point of view role playing games.
Okay.
But at the same time, this was very, very, very much another person's idea and concept.
Well, how did that go?
I was very pleased. I found it to be a very good experience. And I put most of the stuff that I did for it on my Instagram page last week.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I'll check it out.
I mean, it's something you're cranking out over the weekend, so you're not expecting it to be good. But I found I always find the sort of teamwork aspect of a lot of these companies very, very interesting and rewarding.
Yeah, there's video game jams over here. I've never participated in them, but my brother was a judge for one of the contests, and yeah, seeing what people can come up with over a weekend, like a fully, I mean, not polished video game, but a functional video game, is pretty remarkable. And every time I've gone to one of them, they're like, "Yeah, you should do it," and I was just like, I mean, yeah, I could sit there and help you guys and do it, but I like sleep. I have other things to do. Like, I'm not young anymore, you know. I can't.
No, trust me, I get it. And yes, I was the oldest one. I was the oldest one in this group.
Yeah. So, I mean, was it a full 48 hours, no sleep?
Not really. Essentially, everybody, considering what we were doing, everybody went home at 10 o'clock at the latest.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's not awful, but yeah, the ones I've seen, like they were just there, and they would just they'd maybe go to their cars for like a couple hours of a quick sleep or something, but otherwise there was like food and everything for them, so they were just.
To a certain extent, there was so much food and catering at the event that I almost felt like I was being a parasite. I'm here I'm here to help you creatively, honest.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing as 24-hour comic day, right? Like they have special venues that do a 24-hour comic where you sit down and they'll have food and stuff for you, right?
We've never, in all the ones I've been to, you had to bring your own food, but
you had to bring your own food to what, Bill?
24-hour comic.
Well, what we did at our Comic-Con was, or rather our 24-hour comic challenge, is we told people if they brought in protein, because everybody always brings you in nothing but donuts. I mean, we were always on a sugar high, but we said if you bring us in protein, like burgers and fried chicken and pizza, we would draw you into our comic strips.
Huh.
And we also did a live broadcasting on Google's Hangout, and that was kind of interesting.
Okay.
When was last time you guys did 24-hour comics?
Oh, the last time I did it was about 10 years ago. I drank, I mean, it's sort of like the cheap energy drink I was chugging really did a number on my stomach.
The graphic, the drawing group that I started down here called Claw, we did it, let's see, up until about 2 years ago, and we did it for about 7 years consistently.
That was a bad run. Wow.
I've done it 9 times, and of those 9 times, I've managed to complete 5 times.
I have only done it twice, and I have enough sleep issues that I'm not going to mess with my sleep cycle any more than I have to. But the 2 times that I've done it, I finished it 2 times.
The reason we stopped doing it was 1 year I couldn't do it because of a scheduling conflict, because it always falls on the, I believe it's the first Saturday in October. And when left to the hands of somebody else to coordinate and put together, they were notoriously bad at putting things together. And then they said they'd do better the next year, and I told myself I was just too old to do it anymore. And since he said he was going to do it, and it just completely fell apart the second year.
Yeah, that would be tough. I've put so much time and effort into projects that I've handed over to other people just to see them not do as well, and it really sucks when you see that happen.
Well, they need to, for 24-hour comic, you need to log in where you're going to have it, like back in August. And you need to know the venue. There's paperwork to do to the venue. I eventually took the paperwork out of the venue hands and just started doing it myself with their permission. And that way I could get it listed in August so that it could get onto the city's information. But you need to talk with the venue that far out to make sure that they're available. And a lot of venues have an issue with they either have to have a staff person there for the full 24 hours. There's got to be a bathroom on site. And I had a venue, and then I explained to the guy who was taking over that venue was going away because that business moved. And apparently he didn't listen to me about, he approached that venue. The venue said, no, we can't do you guys anymore. We're too small. It was great when we were doing it at this comic book shop because I had keys to the comic book shop, and the owner completely trusted us. It was like a home away from home for all the Tacoma cartoonists. And we just practically lived at that place.
If you allow me to switch to take a turn on the share, Ian, I think I finished this thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. See what you all think.
You got a nice neutral gray background, and then you're switching over to blue.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you switch over to blue?
I mostly, there was a few times where I thought that as a balance thing, just it worked in a few panels. I can switch to teal with all the rest of them as well, though at the time I was sort of trying to get a little bit of variety in there.
I think I don't know if this is Mark's point, but I mean the background shouldn't take away your attention from the foreground and what's going on. So
What you have is a very you were going with a very neutral color that was almost like a gray,
Hmm.
and allowing the forward primary colors to pop, and then suddenly you switched over to a background color that's very primary looking, and it's harsh. It makes all the it's really competing at that section.
Okay, easy fix.
I mean
one
that
of the
one.
ways to do a quick fix is just to desaturate just the background in general. I don't know what layering you have on it, but I mean, you could keep the color, but if you desaturate it and make it so it's not as saturated, it'll help it out without changing the color. If you still want that variety that you're talking about.
It's not as big an issue. I'd sort of.
I like the other color because it's more gray and more neutral and just fades into the background. Also, you've got it dealing with a storyline here where they're passing judgment. So I could see where you would want to change the color when the storyline is shifting and suddenly they're being more less balanced and more opinionated.
Right.
Gentlemen, we got an hour on the clock.
Cool.
So I want to thank you guys for coming and doing yet another epic sketch time. And hopefully this will be a new and improved version, because I'm loving the fact that our picture quality is way up there using Zoom.
Okay.
And we don't seem to be having the lag or sound problems we were having with the other one. So I will definitely download Logitech, and in the next email that I send out, provide a link to that so that other people can download it too.
Well, I'd suggest that you do a test just to make sure that it's something you could figure out. And I mean, if you
that's a good idea. I'll see what I can do about talking with Bill later on this week.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I mean, if you guys want like a quick Zoom session, just so I can kind of go over what I did and see if it helps you out, that way you're not trying to figure it out. Let me know. But otherwise, is this going to still get uploaded to YouTube, or is this more of a test run?
I think I'll try to download and upload this episode to YouTube. First, I have to find out where it goes. So, Anyway, thank you both for joining us. And look in the description of the link in the doobly-doo for both the links for the Logitech Capture. Well, maybe look for that next week, but you can definitely sign up to Epic Sketch Time down below. Thank you, Ian, and thank you, Bill.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye.